I've designed 9 climbing walls from start to finish, and then I've built them too. And today I'll help you with some of what I've learned. We'll go through this in 3 steps. First, we'll help pick the right space in your garage. Second, we'll design the layout for my climbing gym and help you think through yours. And thirdly, we're gonna figure out the materials we need to get our climbing gym started. So follow along, let's go. This is Rock On Dad. I'm Steven, husband, father, pastor, and this is what I do on Monday Fun Day. All right, this is my new garage, and these are my old kids. Since my last video, we sold our blue house and we've moved to a new house. So I've got a brand new garage to build a gym in.
Are you making a video?
Yep, I am designing the new climbing gym. So here's the space that I have. Lots to work with. I've got a 10-foot high ceiling. This is a rental garage, and so we're going to do the best we can and minimize the amount of damage we do to any of the walls. Thinking about where to put this climbing gym. But my first thought was to build a climbing wall right here on this climbing area and a second one right over there. This would provide me with 2 separate spaces to climb and allow me to park a car right here. That's kind of something we'd like, is to have one parked car. We actually have power garage doors in this garage, something new to us. It's always a manual. But the problem with that is it covers up both of our storage spaces and it requires us to spread out our mattresses, making it less safe and more of a spread out area. A second thought I had was to just take this wall over here and this corner right here and make it into just kind of a half box, basically a 90-degree corner, and go up. The problem with 90-degree corners is that if you have any kind of a reverse incline at all, it really eats into the neighboring wall. As you can see on this old climb of mine, by climbing right where I am, I can't use the wall at all to my right. It's basically useless when you add a 45-degree overhang next to it. And so if I do a 45-degree overhang, which is important to me for strength training, the other wall is barely going to get any available space. I thought about this option and nixed it. What I'm planning to go with at this point, and I'm going to show you on paper here what I'm drawing out, is a climbing cave of sorts over here in this corner. My design is to have 3 walls, one right here from this pillar over there, just basically following that column, but at about maybe a 15 or 20 degree reverse slope. And then my third one's going to be the 45-degree over there. It'll provide opportunity for mattresses to be used by more than one climb. Let's go to the drawing board. I've drawn up a picture of my garage facing the garage doors. You can see the column in the middle, and this will be the location for my slightly reversed incline wall. Next, I've added dimensions from the outer wall to the inner column, as well as the height, so I can visualize just how far the spread is and what I'm going to need to build. Next piece of paper, I've added the 2x6s or 2x4s, depending on what you want to use. I've added them to my picture, and you can see I've got one cross beam right down the middle and one attached to the ceiling as well, and that's to minimize the impact on this rental garage. So it's going to kind of come up at an angle right in here, 20-degree angle or so, span that distance. Okay. Let's go back to the paper and see the dimensions. You can see the green ink. I've added dimensions between each of the vertical 2x4s. They're going to be 32 inches apart per this drawing. I ultimately put them 24 inches apart because I did stick to 2x4s going vertically, and I just thought a little closer together wouldn't hurt. I'm designing it to fit well with 4x8 sheets of plywood left to right. So that's why I'm keeping it in 24-inch dimensions. In the bottom right-hand corner, I've outlined how many 2x4s I'm going to need, as well as how many 2x6s. On this drawing, I was thinking I would do 2x6s vertically, but I ended up going with 2x4s, so I can just move that over into the 2x4 column. Ultimately, for this wall, I needed 8 8-foot 2x4s and one 10-footer. And in the 2x6 column, just one 10-foot 9-inch board and one 10-footer for the ceiling. Using blue ink now, I'm calculating how many sheets of plywood I need, And smack in the middle, I'll be using 2 full 4x8 sheets. Over on the right, I'll be using some scrap 2x4 foot sheets of plywood, and same with on the bottom, just some scraps from my previous wall to fill in that kick plate down at the base. In the blue ink at the very bottom, I've calculated just how many sheets of plywood I would need to build this wall. This wall is going to be just over 100 square feet, and so if I were to go to the store and buy from scratch, I would need 3 sheets of plywood plus a 2 foot by 2 foot square to complete this section. The next section will go over here on this far wall. This is going to be the overhang for 45 degrees. Here's that section on a piece of paper. And you'll notice the door on the left and the furnace on the right. I've added dimensions, and an extra challenge to this one is I want that door on the left to be able to open. So I've got to factor that into my build. Here you can see what I'm thinking. There's a kick plate down at the bottom and then a 45-degree incline. Kind of hard to visualize on paper, but that's what I've drawn there. It's going to be 8 feet wide and not take up the entire 10'8" space. I'm making it exactly 8 feet wide because I'm designing it with sheets of plywood in mind. So it's going to come out like a 45 from about right there and go up into the ceiling. Back to the drawing board now. I've added dimensions in green for the pieces of lumber so I can figure out what I would need to buy. I'm using 2x6s for this part of the project and then attaching to that one on the ceiling. Again, I'm trying to minimize the number of contact points with the wall so as not to damage the rental. On this sheet, I've added the plywood dimensions. I'm using plywood that I've already used on previous walls, which helps, but if I were to start from scratch, I would just be buying 4x8 sheets and adding them on here. So you can see in the bottom, in blue, I've added the dimensions. And if I were to start from scratch, this would require 3 sheets of plywood plus 1 4 foot by 3 foot needed. If I add this to my other wall that I'm building, I'm going to need 6 sheets of plywood with some extra, so I would be buying 7 sheets of plywood for this build. Plywood usually runs about 50 to 90 bucks a sheet, and so you could be looking at about 150 to 250 for one wall and up to double that or a little more for 2 walls. Given that lumber is considerably cheaper than sheets of plywood, the total for 2x4s and 2x6s on this entire project came out to be about $109. So all in for a project of this size, 2 walls going to be about $700 for wood, and then you're talking about another $50 to $100 for all the screws you're going to need. Here's the finished product, and my little girl giving it a shot. If you'd like to see more videos about how I build this, how I painted it, and affordable rock holds that you can buy today, and much more, click over on my channel and take a look around, see what Rock On has to offer. Thanks for watching the video. If you want to help me support my family, subscribe. Got to get to 1,000 subscribers so I can make money off these videos. So hit that button and I can put more apples on the table for my kids.